Hello, everyone. I'm WFXR Sports Director Jermaine Ferrell. Welcome to the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. Each Tuesday and Friday, I will have a special sit-down, one-on-one interview with a person in the world of sports. It is our commitment to bring you a special look at these people and share their stories with you on WFXRTV.com. Again, thank you so much for logging on to WFXRTV.com for the latest edition of the WFXR Sports Sit Down. Enjoy. All right, folks, Jermaine Ferrell in the house with another edition of the WFXR Sports Sit Down. And I tell you one thing, I have followed this awesome lady in broadcasting. Actually, I've met up with her on Facebook. We've traded messages over the last few years. And this lady has been doing it for a little more than 3 decades, primarily on the radio side of things. She has an awesome, and I mean an awesome radio show out in the left coast called the CJ Silas Show. It's Wednesday nights. You can catch it 8 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN Radio 1280 and FM 101.7. The Ticket out in the San Luis Obispo area. She's a native of Los Angeles, California. I'd like to welcome the awesome and great CJ Silas. What is up, CJ?
Oh my goodness. You'd think a pandemic would bring us face to face, like we've never met face to face. And the Zoom stuff, the Google Meets, it's like, what? We're face to face? I mean, I would have had to come all the way to Virginia.
There you go. Or I would have come out to, actually, I've been out to California. I'll tell you real quick, a couple of years ago, I was covering the NCAA tournament. They had a first round game in San Jose, and I was Virginia Tech and Liberty were out there. And I tell you, I was blown away by California out there, and it's a lovely state. Your home state, you're born in Los Angeles, California. How about that?
Yep, I went to Hollywood High, and then I went to a little private school. You know, we have a Virginia Tech connection. Bill Roth is the guy that got me started in the business.
How about that?
Bill Roth, who used to be the voice of the Hokies, was the sports director at WAER Radio in Syracuse, New York in 1987 or 88 when I was thinking about going to Syracuse, and he's the one that talked me into going.
How about that?
Yeah.
I'll ask you some more Bill Roth stories. In fact, when he left Virginia Tech, he actually was the voice for UCLA for a year, and then he came back to our neck of the woods. I'll ask you some Bill Roth stories in a second, but I got to ask you, starting off, first of all, again, it's a pleasure. Now, your government name is Carolyn, but you go by CJ. So how did that come about?
You're not going to believe it. It's actually a really good story about who I am. My name is Carolyn Jo Silas. And when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a sportscaster. I didn't know if I wanted to be in TV or radio. I wasn't really sure. And my stepdad had always called me Miss CJ. No one had ever called me CJ. And then we talked about it for a while when I was trying to figure out how I was going to get into a business full of men. And we decided on CJ because in interviews and when they looked at my resume or maybe a resume reel, they wouldn't know I was a woman. So maybe they would look at my stuff. Because in the 80s, nobody wanted women in sports radio or sports TV. So if I'd send a resume that had said Carolyn Jo Silas or Carolyn Silas, it wouldn't have even gotten looked at. It would have just been tossed to the side. And I still have. In fact, I was just looking through, the global pandemic has given me so much free time that I went through storage stuff and I found a stack of letters that were rejection letters, and a few of them were to Mr. Silas because they never even opened and looked at my tape or listened to my little cassette tape. So,
and I want to get into that a little bit in just a second. I mean, so many things I want to talk to you about. Because just looking at your travels and your path to get where you are today, I mean, you were a baseball announcer in the AAA Blue Jays, the Yankees Double A team, which I know you're a big time Dodger fan, and a couple other things too. You are in you do roller derby, which I'll tell you real quick. There was this TV show that came out in '89. It was called Roller Games. And that's where I actually thought, and they had the figure 8 track. I don't know if you remember that show. They filmed it in Los Angeles, but it was
a bank track.
It was a bank track, and they had the Wall of Death. And actually, I used to see roller derby on ESPN, but then I really liked that They had the Georgia Haas and the T-Birds and all that.
Oh my gosh, the old
And
school. It was all fake then. You know that, right?
yes, it
That was
yeah.
all staged like World Wrestling. I'm just letting you know.
Right.
It's a real sport now.
Right. And the neat thing is that, you know, they it was like wrestling. We would watch it. It would come on right after the American Gladiators, because the American Gladiators debuted that same year that Roller Games did, in '89. And so we watch them back to back, and it was pretty cool. But you have a cool name on your team. Your name is Dodge Her Blue, which is kind of neat, plays off of. So tell me how that name came about.
All right. Well, my first name was CJ Hooker, like TJ Hooker from the show.
Yes.
And it was my name for about 4 years. And then I got a divorce. I'm like, you know, I probably need a new name now that I'm starting this, you know, new life. And I'm a crazy Dodger fan. And I play the jammer, and the jammer dodges. So the jammer's like, if you know roller derby, it's similar to a running back in football. So they're without a ball, they're trying to find the holes and make cuts to get through to score points, because you score points, 1 point for every player on the other team that you pass physically. So I dodge. I'm like, dodge. Oh, dodge her. I dodge her. Oh my gosh, Dodge Her Blue. And then I always wanted my nickname to be blue because it's my favorite color. And then my number is JR42 for Jackie Robinson. And my number was JR42 when I was CJ Hooker too. So my number stayed the same. But it just was kind of like my theme. That's, by the way, that's Mr. Robinson who's barking, my dog. That's Mr. Right. Go get a bone. Go get a bone, buddy. He's so cute. So he's named after Jackie Robinson because, go get the bone yourself. He's a puppy. Oi. I'll show him to you in a minute. But I named him Mr. Robinson because I didn't want to name him Jackie because I'd never met Jackie Robinson and I wanted to honor him more. So I didn't use his name. I used Mr. Robinson because in honor and to be respectful. So that's why his name is Mr. Robinson. So Dodge Her Blue and my dog, Mr. Robinson. That
is awesome stuff. I want to talk to you about Jackie Robinson because, you know, usually April the 15th is Jackie Robinson Day, and you're a big-time Dodger fan. And obviously Jackie Robinson, the impact he had. And this weekend, Major League Baseball honored Jackie Robinson. Not only did they give him a day, they gave him the entire weekend. But in this climate right now, which actually, if you could stand up and show your shirt, which you're wearing right now, and it shows that it says, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. And I love that shirt, and I appreciate you wearing that.
So true.
So
true. It's just so true. It's easy. It's so true.
That's right.
There's one race, the human race. It's so true and so easy, but the world is making it difficult. Don't get me started. I'll get on my podium. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can
very
do that.
Passionate about it. I'm very passionate.
And speaking of passion, and again, I'm gonna get back to Jackie Robinson in a second. Now you have a weekly radio show. It airs Wednesdays. It's 8:00 Eastern time, but 5:00 Pacific time. And there was a lot of boycotting. The NBA players, they boycotted and all that. But you did something. You know, Kenny Smith walked off of the Inside the NBA set in protest. You did the same thing with your radio show. You came on, you said, we're not having a radio show today. We're not doing it due to the protest. Talk about just doing that and what made you want to do that?
Well, it was funny because Kenny was the reason I did it. So Kenny and we did a show together at FSR years ago. And so I was prepping my show, which I do all the time. And I haven't really talked much on my show for the past 3 months because when George Floyd got murdered, in a horrific manner, by the way, it's blood curdling. It is so horrific what happened to him. So 3 months ago on May 25th, when that happened, I shifted my show and I decided to stop talking. I decided to start listening because people really didn't want to hear what I had to say. Instead, I shifted my theme. My show is always usually just me. I would do a monologue, I would do an interview, and then I would do a wrap up. And I didn't want to do that. I decided I was going to give my platform. I was still going to be there, but I was going to offer my platform to Black people in the business, whether they were coaches, players, broadcasters, writers, whatever. I wanted to share my platform until it felt like it was time to stop. And every Wednesday, I gave my platform to someone else. And I had an incredible number of guests, wonderful people in the business, from one of my favorites, Scoop Jackson, an NBA writer from Chicago who's amazing, Jason Reed, Justin Tinsley, Kimberly Martin. The list goes on and on about it. And it was just incredible people. And so this week, last past week, would have been the 3-month mark that I'd shared my platform and given it away. And it was time for me to talk, because I felt like what happened to Jacob Blake, I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. I needed to talk. And with the Washington football team, what happened, I needed to talk about that. So it was time for me to just not have a guest. I never do that. I always have a guest because I love to interview. So I decided I'm just going to do a full hour, just me talking. People might change the channel, whatever. So the first segment was going to be Black Lives Matter. The second segment was going to be the Washington football team. And the third segment was going to kind of be Fox Sports Radio celebrated 20 years on the radio last week in this, big party style, but they didn't mention any of the women because all of us signed NDAs when we left, non-disclosures. So we can't tell you what happened to us. So I was triggered by that. I was triggered by FSR turning 20. So I was going to do that in the last segment. I was going to do passionate stuff, and I was just going to be myself and just open my mic. And at about 3:30, I was listening to something, whether it was pregame, it was the Bucks pregame, I think, on NBA radio, on satellite, while I was at my desk. And I'm like, what's going down? Something's not right. And at about 4 o'clock, I thought, wow, they're not playing. I think it was 4 o'clock Pacific, right around then, that the Bucks decided not to play. Then all 3 games in the NBA slowly did the same, and then the Brewers, and it started kind of unfolding between like 3:30 and 4:30 Pacific time-ish. And when Kenny Smith walked off the set, I'm like, nobody wants to hear a white girl from LA talk about anything right now. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to change. I'm not really supporting. So I called the station owner and I said, this is what I want to do. And what I really wanted to do was play revolutionary music for an hour. I had all this great stuff. I was going to play some Bootsy Collins. I was going to play a Hurricane from Bob Dylan. I was going to play The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. I was going to play Marley. I was going to play Lenny Kravitz. I was going to play rap. I was going to take an hour to make a music list, like my favorite. It would be my own special podcast of music of what I listened to. And I was going to just take that like hour and 15 minutes and make a playlist like for 55 minutes to fill the hour. But as I started thinking about it, I'm like, So I call the station owner and I tell him what I want to do. And he's like, no music, that won't work. Because he has a lot of money coming from a different group of people, if you know what I mean. They're not, let's just say they're not wearing these shirts. Is that fair? That's a good way to describe it.
That's fine.
So the money was coming, the money comes from different people. So I own that hour, so I can do whatever I want with it. But he has to okay me going blank, because everyone listens and they're, why is CJ doing this or whatever? So he agreed to let me go on and do it, but he didn't want the music. So from 4:15 until 5 o'clock, I had to figure out how I was going to do it. I was going to go dark. So I have one intern, because all my other interns, I have no production staff. I do everything myself. So I have one intern who comes in studio because he's local. And then all my other interns are out of town, or I've got one who's immune compromised, so he can't come to the show. And then I have these 2 young kids from local Cal Poly that were observing. They weren't even working for me yet. And I'm like, yo, you guys got to step up. We got to do this. We met at the studio and we figured out how are we going to do this? How are we going to have the most impact with this? I'm not going to talk, but how am I going to do it? So I went on a walk. Before I got in my car to drive to the studio, I went on a walk. And I live in a predominantly white neighborhood in Shell Beach, California. And I'm like, how can I do this? What's going to make it the best? How can I be in solidarity and also be effective? And true story, a white car with a license plate that had 42 in it, it was like JLX4297 or something, drove towards me, and there was a black man driving the car. Okay, black people don't drive in Shell Beach at 4 o'clock in the afternoon often. And I took it as a sign because there was 42, Jackie Robinson's number, in the license plate. 42 comes up on my bills all the time. Whenever I look at what time it is, it's 42. When I do runs, it's like 3 miles and 43.42 miles, or it's 4.24 miles, or so that number, when I see it, it gives me messages. So I knew that I had to go dark and I had to be in solidarity, and I didn't even want to talk. So what I did is I drove to the studio and I got a felt board, and you can see it. That's Mr. Robinson barking at someone walking by. Mister, chill. Come here, boo-boo. Come here, mister. So I got a little felt board that like couples use when they're going to announce a birth, and they have the little felt letters, and I wrote hashtag boycott, hashtag solidarity, hashtag Black Lives Matter. And I sat in the studio and I put it on my lap, and I wore my shirt. What shirt did I wear? It didn't matter. What shirt did I wear? I don't remember. And I sat with my hand over my mouth, and we did live Facebook and we did live Instagram. So I had one intern on the Facebook phone. I had one intern on the Instagram phone. I had one intern on the timer. And then on a loop, I got to the studio and I recorded "Your radio is not broken. In solidarity with my Black brothers and sisters in sports and the world, there will not be a CJ Silas show tonight." And I taped it, I put it on. And every 2 minutes on the radio, I hit play, so it would loop. So that if you're driving in your car and you hear dead air, you're not like waiting for me to come on, or what's wrong with the radio, or messing with the channel changer. Within 2 minutes, you're gonna hear this. Because if I'd done completely dark, people would just turn off their radio and they wouldn't know what I'm doing. So I wanted to have people knowing that I was actually, it was all deliberate, and what I was doing was, it was on purpose. So that played every 2 minutes, and then my kids had the phones, and then every 2 minutes they would put the phone down, and we would all like shake our hands and breathe, and then we would either put up one of my social justice shirts and just have that on for 2 minutes, or we'd have the sign. And I always, whenever I had the sign, I had my mouth. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if it was going to get backlash that was bad. I just decided that it didn't matter to me at that moment what anybody thought. Not one moment. Because I wanted to be in solidarity, and that was all I could do. Every other sports talk radio host talked about it. Nobody cares what these people think at this moment. It's not about the talking heads. It's about the movement. And you know what LeBron said, it's even more than that, because it's not a movement, because it's how they've lived their whole lives. Like, to white people, it's a movement, but to Black people, it's a life. And so that's what I did. I wish I had a 3-hour show, because I think it would have been even more effective if we did it for 3 hours. And then I thought, well, maybe I should go dark on Instagram and Facebook until sports comes back, until everybody, but I felt like that was what it was supposed to be. And I don't know if it was good or bad. None of my sponsors are upset. I do have one that spends money would wear this shirt. But he lets me be me, I guess. And I've heard some stuff. I mean, if you go on Facebook and Instagram, people have been a little nasty, but 80% of the people have been like, right on, sister. And it's not even, it's nothing. It's so small. Like, I want to do more. You're powerless at this point. I mean, I want to go and rewrite the history books. I want to go and talk to young people. I want to go into human resources departments and rewrite all the application process. Like, what is little me? I'm nothing. I can't do anything. That's where the change has to take place. That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that was fine. And I will tell you this. First of all, I'm giving you a virtual hug. There you go. Thank you.
I'll drink water.
There you go. Drink water. I tell you this, and this is from my perspective, and I tell this to a lot of white people too. I say the first step is to have an open heart and an open mind, because God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. And it's a step in your direction. You took it upon yourself. You didn't care what your sponsors thought. Hey, I'm going to do this because this is what I believe in. And I think a lot of times when people say it's easy to do the right thing, it is easy to do the right thing. You should do the right thing. And for you to do this, it first of all, it touched me because you believe in this. And I've said this before, Black people can say all these things saying what we're going through and all that, but it's going to take white people to stand up and say this is wrong and what's going on. So I personally, CJ, I appreciate you doing that. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you're like a sister to me. And I love you for doing that. And thank you for stepping up, because a lot of people won't do that. And it takes a lot. And it says a lot about your character, your heart, what you believe in. And thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, it's very small, Jermaine, and I want to do more. And in fact, I even walked away and I thought, if the owner of the station and my sponsor said, you are done, you can't do a show anymore, then that was what was meant to be. And I've done this for a really long time. It's been a super hard career. It's been a struggle. I still struggle financially. But at this point, I feel like the madness can't stop unless we all are a part of the solution. And I see so many of my Black friends and Black people that I know and or I don't know that well that are like, oh yeah, we've seen this in the 40s. Jackie Robinson tried it. We saw it with Muhammad Ali. We saw it with Tommy Smith. And what we've seen it. Look what happened to Colin Kaepernick 4 years ago. So I get that too. I get the, okay, great. You know, you're all about it. You'll come to the protests, you'll come to the rallies, but it's going to die off. Well, I refuse to let that happen, even if it's just my own little crusade. I don't know what's next. Like, I have a show in 2 days. I have no clue what I'm going to do in my show in 2 days. Am I going to do what I planned to do last week? I'm not going to probably strike or black out or boycott again, because sports is not. I'm kind of following the lead in that, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And I feel like it's bigger than the CJ Silas Show. And Thursday in our town, we have an arraignment. I don't know if you've seen the story. We have a 20-year-old activist named Tiana Arata, a Black woman who moved here. I don't remember how old she was, but she goes to college here at one of our junior colleges, and she's an activist. She's been 6 years. She's been traveling around the state of California, I think other places too. And she got arrested on July 21st, and she got charged with 3 misdemeanors and 5 felonies at a protest where she didn't swing a weapon at a person. She didn't, it's ridiculous. And so we've got this arraignment on Thursday morning, and then we have a rally on Thursday night. And that's really what my focus is this week. How can I be a part of that and help move that forward? And I'm crossing my fingers that they pull back on the charges. But if they don't, it's going to be a national story, and it's going to cause a lot of stir here, because last week they had a peaceful rally supporting her, and people came from LA. One of the founders of Black Lives Matter came and spoke, and an actor, I don't remember who it was some super hip, cool Black actor that came. I forgot his name, sorry. And we're going to see some change in this town if she gets arraigned and all those charges stick with her and she has to go to trial. There's no possible way for her to get a jury of her peers here. It would be a struggle to get a jury of her peers here. So we'll see. So that's really kind of where my heart is right now. But I do have a radio show to do in 2 days. I have no idea what I'm going to do. No clue.
Well, I tell you what, again, you know, I want to tell you, keep doing what you're doing, because like I said, I love what you're doing. And again, you might not think you're having an impact, because a lot of times when people, they do something, they go for a cause or they do something like this, they feel like, well, am I impacting anyone? Trust me. It impacted me, it touched me, and it means a lot. So I thank you for that. Now, something and I could tell your passion. I looked over this. I mean, your history. I mean, you've been in radio, you've been at ESPN, you've been at FS1, you've been at ESPN 2. So you've seen what it like to take to get there. But obviously, you mentioned something earlier about you being a woman, and here's the thing, from my perspective, I am such a big advocate for women in sports. You want to really hack me is when people are so disrespectful to women in sports, because I can tell you right now, I'll tell you a funny story real quick. I was a weekend sports anchor in Wichita Falls, Texas. And the lady right beside me, she went to University of Oklahoma. You know how big they are in football and sports. And then the male meteorologist, he went to University of Oklahoma. My female co-anchor, I was doing sports, she knew more about the OU football team than the weather guy.
And he was like, so how long is a football game? And that's what he was asking. And he's a nice guy, but he was clueless he was about as clueless with sports as I was if I were to go in his weather center and figure out, okay, how does this work and whatever else. But you have really broken a lot of barriers. You've done a lot in this business to get where you are today. And I think the plight with women is very similar with Black people in the world and in the business today. But first of all, just talk about just some of the struggles and some of the things you went through and what you're going through as a woman in the business.
Well, I think, and thank you for acknowledging that. And I would never try to do weather, ever. Thank you for recognizing that. It's been a long road, and I feel very proud that I have my own show with my name on it, and it just turned 8 years old this year. Unfortunately, yes, it's pretty exciting and cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay the bills because I'm only on one night a week, and it would be hard to go 5 nights, and it's just logistically, it's a conversation for another day. But I think radio is different than TV. And I'm going to be completely frank. I think and I believe that all women that are doing sports have really worked hard. Most of them have put in their dues. They've gone to school. They've learned how to write. They've learned how to interview. TV is different. TV is very accepting of women. There are women doing sports on TV, and they have been for a long time. I mean, there are people like Andrea Kramer and Pam Oliver that have been around, for Michelle Tafoya. I mean, there are some really incredible women, Mary Carrillo, Robin Roberts did it for a while. But if you look at sports radio, it's a different being. It's a different beast. And I have my own theories about it, which I don't know if that matters, but
no, actually, I would love to hear your theories. Share your theories.
Well, first of all, women aren't doing a lot of sports radio. Still now, a lot of the women that do sports radio are just tapping into it for a day or two or an interview or two because they're from TV, right? Mm-hmm. Sarah Spain has a national show. Amy Lawrence has one on CBS. And now they're starting to bring some back. There are a few now. So it's 2020. I started in 1988 in Syracuse, New York on a national public radio station while I was going to college. And between then and now, I've known more women that have tried to be in radio than have succeeded in radio. I still, to tell you the truth, Jermaine, don't consider myself succeeding in radio yet. I've had moments where I felt I was succeeding because I was on a national show or I was on a network, and I was on ESPN Radio Network last year. I had a great show on Sunday nights called Into the Night with Trevor Scales.
That was a good show.
Then the pandemic happened and baseball season didn't happen, and we were a baseball themed show on Sunday nights after the Sunday night game of the week. So we were taken off the air. We weren't brought back because there was no space for it. So from 1988 to 2020, which is 32 years, I'll do the math for you. I've done national shows on FSR. I did a national show on Sports Fan Radio Network when they were merged with CBS Sportsline, and we were the first 24-hour internet sports radio station. And then I came back to the West Coast, and I worked on ESPN2 for a little while doing some voice work on Jim Rome's show called Talk2. And then I covered the OJ Simpson trial. And then I got back on sports radio. And then fast forward in 2007, I did some sports radio Saturday mornings on ESPN National. That was a short. Then last year I got back on Sports Radio National with ESPN in 2019, but never more than like a year. And I don't think it was because I wasn't talented enough, but it wasn't comfortable for men to hear a woman on the radio. The P1s, our main listeners, for many, many years didn't trust that a woman knew enough about sports to talk on the radio, except doing the sports update. Christine Lisi on ESPN has been doing sports updates for years. She's amazing, uber talented, knows more about sports than half the people she works with. She's an update anchor. She talks for a minute and a half, twice an hour. Sports radio is an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5-hour blocks. Men for years were not comfortable hearing a woman. They didn't want to. They didn't believe she knew enough. Oh my gosh, the hate mail that I got when I was on FSR. I was going to write a book about it. I still kept them. I printed every single email from when I was on FSR. I just found it, and I chose not to throw it away because I think it's a book. It's this big. And it's every email that I had correspondence with listeners that hated me at the beginning and loved me towards the end, or hated me at the beginning and hated me at the end, or trusted me or didn't, or whatever it was. Sports radio is different because you have to listen to a woman talk. You don't get to look at her. Think about that. TV, you can look at her and you don't have to listen to her. That does not disparage or look down to the women that are doing it, because I listen to them. Most of them know a lot of what they're talking about. They're very good at what they do, but they started as sideline reporters. They only got to talk for maybe a minute. They interviewed the Peach Queen or the coach of the wife of the coach or the girlfriend of the quarterback. And remember, sideline reporters, when you and I started in this business, they were there for one reason. Do you remember what it was? Mm-hmm. To find out about injuries on the field. Mm-hmm. If there was an injury on the field, that's the only time you saw the sideline reporter, unless maybe at the beginning of the third quarter or at the end of the second quarter, they would talk real quick before halftime or right after halftime. But the sideline reporter's main job was reporting on injuries down on the field. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Eric Dickerson, remember Eric Dickerson on the sidelines? Like, we think about it. So sports radio is so different than sports TV because you're committing to listen to a woman. And in TV, you're not. Is that a crazy perspective? It's true.
That is right. But let me ask you this, from this perspective, do you feel, because, I mean, I think a lot of people, and I'm not even saying it's a gender thing, male or female, I think a lot of people love the TV aspect because you're in front of the camera, you're on camera all the time. With radio, again, like you mentioned, they don't see you. And now, what's interesting with radio shows now, a lot of them, they're going to like Facebook Live or streaming their radio shows. So it's almost like TV again. And a lot of the ESPN shows now, you can watch them on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPN News. So again, it's kind of like TV with a radio camera or whatever. But do you feel that it's just the glamour of the TV side? Because, you know, I think radio is cool. And I think your show is awesome. And I've listened to it over the years. And, you know, it's just crazy. Just on a whim, I just reached out to you a few years ago, say, hey, I love your show and all that. And you reached back to me and say, hey, you know, I appreciate all your kind words. And, but it's just interesting that I just think the appeal for TV might be the stronger appeal. Maybe people look at radio, it's not really what you would call quote unquote cool. But I think any medium you can get into is awesome.
I agree. I think TV is more glamorous. There's definitely more money in TV. And for a long time, I would say there was a 10-year period, maybe in the early 2000s, that people thought maybe radio was going to disappear. Remember when satellite radio came, we thought maybe terrestrial radio was going to go away. Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of it. Now, for me, if you want to know why I chose radio, right. Do you want to know? Oh,
yeah, sure.
I have always had body image issues, and I worked really hard with an eating disorder, not something that got me sick where I was in the hospital or anything, but it was mentally very challenging to me to think about having to be pretty every day. And so when I was choosing it, when I started, I did a little TV and I did radio, and I was like, oh my gosh, radio, I could just be myself. I could just talk. I don't have to put makeup on every day and be skinny and be as beautiful as all those other women that are newscasters or weather reporters or whatever it is. And so I really made the choice to stick with radio completely because I didn't want to battle with what I was eating every day and how I looked and my hair. And then down the road, I thought about, well, if I was going to do a TV show, which I still would be open to doing, it would have to be an interview show. Like, I wouldn't want to be a sideline reporter. I wouldn't want to be an anchor reading a teleprompter. I would want to be like a Roy Firestone style that did the in-depth interviews, because I feel like my strongest quality over the years that has evolved is interacting with a human and talking to a human about things that really mean something to them. Like, say, for instance, I was going to interview LeBron James right now. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be about as much, how do you feel about your assist numbers being higher than your point numbers sometimes, or Anthony Davis being the go-to guy, or your statistics. But I want to know about LeBron and how he connects and why sports is so important to him in his heart, why he's using his platform, why he decided to build a school, why sports became the catalyst for him to do something bigger on the planet, as opposed to interviewing LeBron James right after a game when he's still sweaty and he only had 17 points and we want 35 from him. Why did he only get 17? That's not interesting to me. It's not. It's part of the story. Of course it is, but you can get that in the box score. You can get that in the game report. You can hear that on the sportscasters' 3 minutes of sports that they get to do during the newscast. But I want to go deeper than that. And so for me, if I was gonna do TV now in my life, which I'm totally open to doing, it would have to be an interview-based show. I wouldn't want it to be that, 6 minutes you get with a guy, the same questions that everybody's asking. I want to go deeper. Life is like, humans are deeper than sports. Sports is amazing, and it's entertainment for us. And I played sports my whole life. I still play sports. But for me, watching it from the outside, I wanted to share more with the world about the human that does the sports, as well as the sport, because that's what makes them partially who they are.
I gotta say, first of all, you're cool as heck. I'm just throwing it out there. I think you're cool. I gotta say that.
Jermaine, I totally appreciate that, but there are a lot of people on the planet that don't think I'm cool, that either think I'm too Pollyanna or positive or idealistic, or I laugh too much, or I smile, or they're the people that are like, she doesn't know enough about sports. That's why she likes to do this other style, because then she doesn't have to be knowledgeable. But the truth is, I have opinions. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of opinions. I have strong opinions. But I don't create my opinion just to have one. Yeah. And being myself, I'm in my 50s now, and being myself is so much more important than being what someone else wants me, because I tried that. It didn't work. It didn't work, Jermaine.
Well, what's interesting, there's an old saying, Baskin Robbins got 31 flavors. So if you don't like this flavor, try another one. I got to ask you something. And this was something that really sparked my interest. And it kind of fell on the lines of race. 25 years ago, you were covering the OJ Simpson trial.
Oh my gosh, I did cover the OJ Simpson trial.
They've done a documentary on that, obviously, OJ in America, his whole history in life. I got it, and I'm not going to get into just the nuts and bolts of, did you think he's guilty or innocent? That's not really where I want to go with it, unless you want to share your opinion, but otherwise I'm not. But just talk about just how the media attention, because the thing that stood out to me, watching the NBA Finals, the Knicks and the Rockets and the White Bronco, and then finally he's going home and all that. I honestly think that in today's climate, if that was today, I think they probably would have shot down the White Bronco, but that's just my opinion. I don't think they would let him proceed the way they did, but that's a different story for another day.
I think you're right.
Talk about just the trial in general, and just because it was like 8 months long. Just talk about just being in the midst of it every single day.
Well, I didn't get to go in the courtroom because there were only a certain amount of reporters that got to go in the courtroom. So there was a place where like all the pool reporters went. There was like a place where they could watch the video. And then the way I was doing it is I was more outside of the courtroom, getting the feel for the atmosphere and the mood, because what I did is I was a stringer and I called into radio stations around the country. I did like Cleveland, Seattle, San Diego, New York, LA, and I would call in and I would talk about the trial. And so I was at the courthouse on the outside of the building more than I was in, because it was a little hard for me, Jermaine, because you're not going to believe this part. Ron Goldman was my friend. So this is crazy, and a lot of people don't know this. I was a bartender at the same time because I've always kind of worked in the restaurant business to make ends meet. And I was on a restaurant softball team, and I played second base. But my restaurant in Santa Monica wasn't big enough to field its own team. So we blended with a restaurant called Mezzaluna, which is where Ron Goldman worked. And he was a shortstop. We were the double play combination. We were a team. We won the championship of a restaurant softball league. And the year that Ron got murdered by OJ Simpson, he was the shortstop and I was the second baseman, and he didn't come to practice one day. And we didn't know why. It's because he was dead. That's a true story. CNN came to one of our practices. So fast forward, so the rest of the year we had a big RG that we wore on our jerseys. We have a team picture somewhere. I just saw it. Where was that? I just went through a box of photos in the middle of the pandemic. I've been going through stuff. And so CNN came to the practice and interviewed people. Fast forward, I'm at the trial. I'm covering the trial of a man that murdered my friend. So it was really hard for me to be in the building. So I stayed outside most of the time. And before the verdict came across, I got hired. Oh, it was Seattle. Seattle was one of the other cities. So before the verdict came across, I got hired to work on a midday show in Seattle from the work I was doing covering the OJ Simpson trial. So like 2 months before the verdict, I moved to Seattle to work for KJR Sports Radio. So I was in Seattle when the verdict came across.
I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't realize that you and Ron Goldman.
Nobody knows.
So I was the first one to hear that, apparently. So
some people know, but I don't. I mean, I haven't talked about
it.
No,
you broadcast out.
I mean, I haven't talked about it much on my show because it's so long ago, and kids nowadays don't even know what it was. I mean, it was so long ago.
Wow. I tell you, I was in the Army when everything was going on, and the trial was on, and then it's just so fascinating, but I couldn't imagine that. Now, you doubling back real quick, Bill Roth. Again, you're Syracuse, and here's the thing about Syracuse people. I've said this before.
You can say it.
You probably can't go anywhere if you cover a sporting event. Chances are you're going to bump into someone from Syracuse. Like
it's the Newhouse Mafia.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
That's what we call it.
Really,
hashtag Newhouse Mafia.
There are only, when you think of journalism, broadcasting schools, there's only 4. Syracuse, Northwestern, Missouri, and Arizona State. If you didn't go to one of those 4, but anyway, in fact, I'll tell you this story real quick. I was covering the ACC tournament in Greensboro when they shut down everything for COVID, and there was a couple of Syracuse students that saw what I was doing. They came up to me and just said, "Hey, we want to pick your brain, how you do lives, how you do all this." So right now there's this young lady I'm helping who's a Syracuse graduate, helping her get a job right now. So again, that's what I'm all about. I'm all about mentoring, but that's another story we'll talk about another time. But Bill Roth, just talk about him, because right now he's at Virginia Tech after a great he's still broadcast, not like he's done with it, but he is shaping the minds of so many young people in broadcasting they go through Virginia Tech. We get them as interns, we help them out in that regard. But Bill Roth really is the one that's planted the seed, and a longtime broadcaster at Tech. I mean, his calls of all the big moments at Tech has been tremendous. But just talk about Bill Roth.
So I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I was at SC. I was a freshman at SC, and they didn't have a radio station on campus at the time. They do now. The Annenberg School of Communications was just kind of starting, and USC is not in that top echelon of sportscaster school, even if they may say so, and I went there. And USC didn't have a radio station on campus where students were allowed to work. So what I decided to do when I decided to transfer is I was going to find a place around the country where either A, I could run track and not come in last anymore, because I came in last at every single event I ever ran at USC, but it was awesome. I was either going to run track and do better, or I was going to go to a school that had a good radio station on campus where kids could work and get on the air during college. So I did all my research, and I had planned my trip and where I was going to go. And I went to Syracuse. It was my first stop. I canceled the rest of my trip. I didn't go to any other schools because I fell in love with WAER radio. And I fell in love with the track coach, who, believe it or not, is still like an uncle to me, like a father. He actually walked me down the aisle at my wedding, my track coach from Syracuse, Andy Roberts, who's now in Arizona. But when I met Coach Roberts, I don't even like calling him Andy. He's still coach to me. When I met Coach Roberts and I toured the radio station, I met Bill Roth. And that's how it all started. 1987, 86. Because I remember, this is so weird. So I was at SC and I knew I wanted to transfer, and I went on my recruiting trip to Syracuse, but I didn't go because I got a job on a TV show acting. So I pushed my sophomore year at Syracuse back like a year and a half or 2 years so I could do this acting gig. And I had met Bill Roth along the way, and we stayed in touch. And he's the one that brought me into AER. He talked to the guys at AER and said, you got to give this woman a chance. Well, he called me a girl. There were no women there. And that's how it started. So really, Bill Roth was one of the main reasons that I had any confidence to go travel all the way across the country in the most cold, most snow I've ever seen in my entire life, Syracuse, New York, from LA, USC. And I went to Syracuse, and Coach Roberts ended up being, still to this day, one of the top 5 most important people in my life.
You mentioned a TV show. What TV show was that?
Fame.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember Fame.
I'm gonna live forever.
It was syndicated at the time because it left NBC and it went into syndication like that.
Whoa, good memory. KTLA. I'm gonna learn how to fly high. I feel it coming together.
Which episode can we find? Can we find the episode you were in?
Yeah, unfortunately you can.
Okay, well, you gotta let me know which one it is. So.
I was in 20 episodes. I ended up doing 20. I was supposed to do 6 episodes, and then my character stayed. Wow. She was a waitress in a bowling alley. Her name was Laura Mackey.
Wow. Are you in the credits too, obviously?
Oh, I was a guest star. I had my own card. Look at
CJ, got a little guest star in action. Look at you.
Yeah, and I did a whole season, and then they canceled the show. I would have probably stayed on.
What year was that?
86.
86? Okay, 1986.
Laura Mackey
was
the character name. Laura Mackey.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to look that up, and I'm going to get back with you, and I'm going to critique your acting skills from back then.
Okay, I got to tell you something, though. You might not recognize me because I was a blonde, and I was addicted to tanning salons, so I look like a blonde carrot. And Laura Mackey was the waitress in the bowling alley where all the kids went after school. So that's how my character was like intertwined into the school.
That's awesome. One other thing I noticed too, you're a motivational speaker too. And a lot of things you talk about, I looked on your bio, and the thing that stands out, and there's a motto that I love you have in there, and it stands out with me when I read it. It says, break the barrier. Create your story. And I know you mentioned that a lot, but just talk about that and how you push that on to people. Because obviously there are women in the business, there are people in the business who want to get to a level like where you've been at the network and all that. But talk about break the barrier and what that means to you personally and what it means when you try to deliver that message.
Well, unfortunately, Jermaine, I still think I'm breaking the barrier, unfortunately, in sports radio, because there's not been a woman to have her own morning show on sports radio. The Fabulous Sports Babe had a really short time that she had her own, and I don't think she was in mornings. And really, a long-standing woman in sports radio has not happened yet. Amy Lawrence is probably the most. She was at ESPN for a while, and now she's at CBS, and she's on the overnights, and she's good. She's on the overnights. You know who listens to sports radio in the middle of the night? So her listenership, it's high. a lot of truckers, a lot of people that can't sleep. They're not bad people, but she's not getting the exposure that she deserves. She's been doing it a long time, overnight. Sarah Spain, she's been doing it for not long on ESPN. Katie Nolan did it for a bit. Mina Kimes, a little. It's still a barrier we need to break. But when I go and I talk to young people, and they go to my website and they see that I wrote a book and they see the CJ Silas Show brand that I've built, and it's taken me 30 years of pain and sweat and fear and anger and a divorce and death and sickness, it's still a difficult place for women to be. I still struggle in this business. So when I talk to young people and they see what I've created and the logo and all the interviews that I've done, I'm very proud. I'm not trying to look down upon what I've done. But if I drive somewhere or I walk in the middle of the street and I get hit by a Mack truck and I die today, I've had an incredibly privileged life. I've had wonderful experiences. I've been to every sporting event you can think of. There have been a few that I haven't been to. I've interviewed some of the biggest, brightest minds in sports, some of the most talented, wonderful people in sports. But I haven't gotten what I wanted. I've always wanted to do a morning show in sports radio. But when young people look at my career and my history, her story, not his story, history, her story. It's a wonderful story with so much success. Not a lot of money, but so much success, so much pride and honor and mistakes and creation and accomplishments and wonderful things. But the barrier's still being broken. But when you're a 19 or 20-year-old kid that I speak to at colleges or wherever I speak, it looks terrific. I wrote a book. I've interviewed everybody. But the barrier is not broken. I still hit my head on that cliche ceiling when I work in sports radio to this day. The only way to do the sports radio that I wanted to do, I had to buy my own show. I pay for my show. I don't get paid. I bought a time slot because it was the only way to get it. So I'm still breaking the barrier. Jackie Robinson is still rolling in his grave, waiting for me to hit that pinnacle. And the pinnacle has shifted for me. I used to think that I wanted to do football play-by-play, baseball stadium, and a morning show. And now I want to do the CJ Silas Show the way it is, maybe somewhere on a bigger scale, interview-based. So I'm playing the hits, right? So whatever the sports stories of the day, I want to play that hit, but I want to play that hit in depth. I want to go deep. So that's the kind of radio show I want to do 5 days a week. I don't want to jump all over the board and talk about NBA for this hour, NFL for this hour, the draft, Major League Baseball, MMA. I want to do, even if it's just 1 hour a day, I want to play one hit deep. I want to go deep with all the characters in that story. It hasn't happened yet. Nobody does it. It's like Up Close and Personal with Roy Firestone on the radio, but every day for an hour would be great. I'd even do a TV show if I had to. Fine. At this point, I would do it. Would just have to get my gray covered up more often, and maybe I'd have to get a makeup artist, whatever, stylist. But now I want to be a Major League Baseball, either a stadium announcer or more than that, a pregame, postgame show host for a Major League Baseball team. So I'm still breaking the barrier. I talk to the young people, but I haven't really broken it.
Interesting.
Big glass of water.
That does look refreshing.
It's got lemon. That's why it's foggy. It's got lemon.
It's okay. Yeah. It looks refreshing, by the way. Someone that you probably know very well with your team, the Dodgers, Alana Rizzo. I worked with her.
She's wonderful.
She's awesome. I worked with her in Wichita Falls. She started there, and obviously her career has progressed. And then Melanie Newman, who called baseball games for Salem Red Sox in our Virginia area, she's with the Orioles. So I'm seeing these women break barriers, but what's even more for me, like I said, and I'm not saying this, and I don't throw my words around lightly, because when I speak, I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. But when I've listened to you, it's an inspiration. You know, what you're doing with the Black Lives Matter cause, seeing what you're doing to try to uplift other women into business. Because again, I want women to get a shot. I want women to go out there and do what they want and live out their dreams and goals and passions. And for you to buy your own show is impressive to me, because there's a lot of guys, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of guys would not do that. So kudos to you, but we got to do this.
Hey, wait, I have to tell you one thing, because you're not going to believe this part. I have to interject.
Okay, sure.
I didn't just buy my own show, Jermaine, okay? I emptied all of my savings. I emptied all of my retirement. I have nothing. I was on food stamps for 3 of the years while I was doing the show, which I never told anyone while I was on it.
Wow.
Working in a restaurant. But the problem is with working in a restaurant, if you work seasonally, right? Like I do my football play-by-play for 10 weeks in the fall, and then I do my baseball for 3 months in the spring. Not a lot of restaurants want you if you have to leave for a whole block of time, or you can't work Saturday nights for a whole football season. And so just so you know, when I bought the CJ Silas Show, it was the fall of 2011, and we started on March 31st, 2012.
Wow.
I had 0 money in my bank account. I lived on credit cards as long as I could. And then I started chipping away at it, doing weddings, bartending at weddings, to chip away at it, because it was the only way to have the CJ Silas Show. Because a lot of people would have hired me at that point, Jermaine, but I was tired of being a co-host. I was tired of being a sidekick. I was tired of being the token woman who looks pretty in the background, who sits over here and giggles at your jokes, and once in a while you let her pick a game, you know? So all the radio shows that I had done over the years, except for the ones where I'd finally been given the hosting role, I was always the sidekick. I always spoke, 20, 25% of the time. So in order for me to do my show the way I wanted to do, interview-based, topical, opinionated shows, I had to come back from a divorce. And I took time off to go volunteer during Katrina in New Orleans. So when I came back from Katrina and I came back from my divorce, there was no place for me in radio the way I wanted to come back, was with my name on a show. And so that's why I did it. The sacrifice I made in 2011, late of 2011, was the scariest thing I ever did. And it was nerve-wracking for anyone who loved me, because I had nothing. It was the craziest thing, and it was such a risk. And I'm so proud that I did. The show doesn't make enough money. I still work on the side. The show pays for itself for the production. I still have to buy my time, pay for my website, pay for my podcast. I pay for everything. But the fact that it's the CJ Silas Show, and I can do whatever I want, and I can go on the air on Wednesday, August 26th, 6th, yeah. and black myself out was worth every friggin' penny I spent in 2011. No one else would have let me do that. If anybody else went to ESPN or FSR or anyone and said, I want to go dark, I bet everything I have on it, no one would let them do that. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if I didn't own my show. So I'm sorry I had to interject. But I just wanted you to know the food stamp part, because that was embarrassing. That was demoralizing. That shook my integrity to go to the Department of Social Services and ask for help. But it was worth it to me. It makes me sad, because I worked so hard in my life that I should not have had to be that poor.
God bless you. I tell you, I respect you. I respect you even over this time frame, but everyone has a story, and your story is touching. Your story already touched me, but just hearing more of the things you've done, I hope and pray, and like I said, I'm a fan of yours, and I hope and pray down the road that the networks and all these places get in their head, hey, the CJ Silas Show deserves an opportunity. Because here's the thing, if you think about it, over time, if you look at, say, the Oprah Winfrey's of the world and all those all the women, They started somewhere small, but and look at them now. So it's going to happen for you. I feel that if you keep doing what you're doing, they say life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you're at mile marker, whatever, and you still got more to go. So you have a lot more to offer, CJ. So I know that you're going to get there. And again, I hope you do get there. I feel you will. So, keep the faith.
I do.
Keep doing it, because let me tell you something. CJ Silas got it going on like popcorn. That's all. So. All right, we're having a little fun now.
Okay.
Ferrell's 5.
Okay.
I'm going to throw 5 questions at you. You just, tell me what it is and why. All right.
Okay.
I kind of know the answer to this, but it's one official with my favorite color, favorite questions. Your favorite color and why?
My favorite color is blue because I'm a Dodger fan. And when I was a very little girl, my grandma, to help me kind of deal with my parents getting a divorce, my grandma took me to a Dodger game and she had me watch the Rams, and she had me watch the UCLA Bruins, and blue has kind of always been my theme. Like, it's just who I am. A lot of people call me that. My nickname is Blue because of my roller derby name. Not a lot of people call me Dodge Her. Most people call me Blue.
That's right. I call the umpires there. Sing to me, Blue.
I say Blue all the time. Like, come on, Blue, put on some glasses. Or when the umpire forgets to tell me that there's a pitching change, I'm like, hey, Blue. Who's on the mound? Yeah.
Real quick, there was a movie that I saw when I was a little kid. It was in the late 70s. I'm 46. I'll let you know. But it was 1970. It was a movie called, I don't know if you heard of it, called Aunt Mary. Have you heard of that movie?
No.
Okay. It's a movie. It starred Jean Stapleton.
I know who that is.
She, of course, Edith Bunker, All in the Family.
Yeah,
yeah. And she played a lady by the name of Mary Dobkins, who was in the Baltimore area. If you look it up, I mean, it's on, do you have Prime?
Yeah, so wait, it's a nonfiction.
No, it's nonfiction. It's a story.
Oh, I love those. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, she played, because she knew a lot of baseball. I mean, she was a big time Orioles fan. She knew a lot of baseball. So then she ended up organizing a Little League baseball team, but where she lived, because she lived on public assistance and all that, where she lived, it was an area where, it had, low income kids, and she rallied them all together and got a team and all that. Martin Balsam, who was in that movie, he played in Archie Bunker's place, played Archie Bunker's partner. Dolph Sweet, who was on Give Me a Break, he played in that movie as one of the sponsors of the team.
Aunt Mary, I'm going to look it up the minute we hang up. I'm going to put it.
You'll love it. I finally found it. I saw it. Our TV station here back when I was a little kid would play it late at night, and it was a CBS movie, and I loved it. But her name was Mary Dobkins, and she was they named ballparks after her in the Baltimore area. I love the movie. I recommend it. And basically she's got a lot of prejudice being a female Little League baseball manager.
Oh, for sure.
So watch that movie. You'll love it. You gotta let me know what you think.
Well, I'm on it. I got time.
Good deal. Favorite show to binge watch?
Oh my gosh, you're not gonna believe this. I hate to admit this. I don't watch TV like that. I only watch sports and I guess Jimmy Fallon or Trevor Noah. Yeah, those that's really Trevor Noah and Jimmy Fallon.
Good
They're my soulmates and they don't even know it.
Gotta link you up with them sometime. Favorite salad dressing?
Balsamic vinaigrette.
You know what I thought you would say? I thought you would say blue cheese.
Well, okay, so blue cheese, yeah, if I wasn't always trying to be fit and trim, maybe, but balsamic vinaigrette is my go-to.
Good deal. Speaking of food, you're having this big dinner party. CJ Silas is hosting a big dinner party, and you could invite 5 sports figures. They could be living, dead, they could be in broadcasting, whatever field of sports. 5 people you invite to this dinner party, and why?
Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
Serena Williams.
Okay.
Vin Scully.
Oh, yes.
Torrey Hunter.
Yeah.
and Jim Brown.
Wow, that's strong right there. That's some strong stuff right there. I like that. I like that list. I would love to meet Vin Scully.
Oh
Did you know? What's that?
I have never. I've been in the press box 100 times.
And you could have walked around the corner and said hi.
But he's got a block. Like when he was doing the games, nobody was allowed. I can't believe it.
You should probably get him on your show.
Gosh, it'll be a dream.
Yeah, see if you can get him on your show. But anyway, he has Twitter now. Today he announced on Monday that he started Twitter. I think it's @Vin Scully or something like that.
He is not doing his own Twitter. He's got one of his grandkids or somebody's doing it.
He's finally on social media.
I don't even do my own Twitter all the time.
I hear that. Hey, I do my own. I got to, because you never know.
Yeah.
And then finally, greatest sporting event you have ever covered, and it's a two-parter, and sporting event you would like to cover.
Ooh. Gosh, I mean, I would say probably the NCAA tournament because it's such an event and there's so many things. It's not just one moment.
Right.
So I would say the NCAA tournament is the best I've done. Because, I mean,
one shining moment.
yeah, I mean, it's the whole experience, the talk shows leading up. I've San Antonio. I was there. I was at Charlotte. Yeah, it'd have to be the NCAA tournament just because there's so many people there. Mm-hmm. I got to work closely with just, oh my gosh, I got to interview Nolan Richardson, and I got to meet John Wooden, and this is the one in San Antonio. And then I got to stage manage for Dick Vitale. And I mean, gosh, John Saunders and Charlotte. Yeah, it's got to be the NCAA tournament, but I can't pick one of them, but I've been more to one.
That's fine.
And then one that
or I'll rephrase the question. A sporting event that you would like to cover that you never have covered.
Okay, that I never have. That's a home phone. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to answer it just so that the ringing stops.
Okay.
It's a home phone. There's a home phone where I am. What?
What in the world?
That's crazy. Glad I thought quickly on my feet. That's a radio person for you.
Yeah.
Look how quick. That was less than 10 seconds. That's live radio, right? That's live radio.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I think it would probably be the NBA All-Star Game.
Okay.
I haven't done that. And that's an event, because I've done the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. The Pro Bowl doesn't really get me excited, but I would say the NBA All-Star Game, because I would say the NBA All-Star Game of the NBA today, right, because the NBA players now are so present with the world, and they're so active and they're so conscious. So even though the NBA All-Star Game in the 80s and 90s might have been cool, it would be an NBA All-Star Game of today.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And then finally, a couple of other quick things. You mentioned Jackie Robinson, and it's actually a two-part question. Jackie Robinson, and then obviously helping out Katrina, because you've done so much. I mean, your career, like, people hear your story, it's tremendous. But just
Jermaine, wait, I got to interject one more time. Check this out. Speaking of American history, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We've got the OJ Simpson trial.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We've got Pan Am 103 went down when I was in Syracuse, so I ended up reporting on that.
Wow.
I was a sportscaster wannabe, but it was Christmas break, so everyone else was at home. So I became a news reporter. Katrina. Yeah. I mean, those three.
Iconic.
American history.
Those are iconic events.
So I just had to say, I mean.
Oh, no, that's okay. Jackie Robinson, I mean, obviously he meant so much to you, means so much to you. And then obviously with Chadwick Boseman passing away, he played Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall and Jim Brown and all those. But just talk about just Jackie Robinson and, you know, what does he mean to you? You know, obviously with Major League Baseball is honoring him every year on April the 15th. But he broke a lot of barriers, obviously. And watching the movie 42 was something. But what is he, being a Dodger fan, he has to mean a lot to me.
It all started when I was little mini, and my grandma was a big sports fan. I don't know how it happened, but my grandma was a big sports fan, and she told me about Jackie Robinson because I wanted to be the first woman to play for the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. I played Little League. I was one of the first girls to break into LA Little League. Like I had to fight me and Laura Doney. I have no idea who she is or where she is now, but we were the only two little girls to play in West LA Little League. And I wanted to play shortstop or left field for the LA Dodgers. And I wanted to do it. I didn't really understand the concept of being the first girl because I didn't really understand that there weren't any when I was that little. And then I found out after, going to Little League and playing for 2 years and being the only girl 1 year and one of two girls the other year. And then I played all the way until they kind of kicked me out because girls weren't allowed to play in Pony League. So they pushed me over to softball. So that was kind of like when my dream was deflated because you can't play softball your whole life and then be a professional baseball player. They're two different sports. So before I'd been pushed into softball, I was kind of hoping that I would do that. And my grandma told me about this man who was the first man of color to play in the majors, and she told me his story. And that's really how it all started. And then she also kind of gave me hope because he did it. Maybe I could. Well, then I kind of followed his story and learned more about him. And I mean, what he did for baseball was small compared for what he did in the civil rights movement in our country. I mean, he was a Republican. He was such a prevalent human being in the civil rights movement after he played baseball. I mean, what he did in baseball was incredible. The resiliency and the patience and the pride that he had to sit there and let people treat him and his family the way he did is remarkable. And so he became my WWJD. What would Jackie do? That he was my spiritual guide. He was my Jesus. I mean, I'm a Jewish girl. We didn't really pray to one being. It was more to a book and to community. The Jewish faith is different than others. It's not as much about the rabbi or the preacher or the reverend or the pastor. It's more about the community. So Jackie was my spiritual guide. So the book that I wrote, which really has never been published fairly, is called The Only Girl in the Room. And Jackie is my spiritual guide throughout the book. He appears often in my career and in my life as my WWJD. What would Jackie do? And so he's still with me. 42 shows up in remarkable ways at outrageous moments to show me and inspire me and push me to never give up. Never, ever give up. And now it's shifted not from CJ Silas being a sports talk show host, because I'm not even sure it's going to ever happen to me the way I wanted it or want it. But now he's guiding me through the Black Lives Matter movement and how I can be a person to mean something in it, and an activist and an agent of change, a person who really, when I die, I would now want people to see what I did, not only in sports radio and in baseball, but what I did as a white woman to continue the energy and the movement and to energize Black people who are tired of the story and don't believe it's going to really happen. Jackie!
I tell you, I thank you, my sister. I mean, you're family to me now. I know this is the first time we've actually, well, the second time we talked on the phone Friday, but this is the first, interaction. So you're my sister, and keep doing what you're doing, because here's the thing. I am, I'll say this, and I sincerely mean this, and I interview a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, and when in this business, you kind of become sort of a human polygraph. You know who's real, who's not. And you're one of the realest people I know, and I've interviewed a lot of people, and I respect the heck out of you. And in fact, you know what? I'm gonna go on Amazon, see if I can get your book from 2011, which was No Girls Allowed, the Jock and Jill mentality of sports broadcasting. I'm gonna look up that.
You probably can't, but the truth is, The story's so long. It's another whole Zoom meeting, okay? But the publisher that did originally publish No Girls Allowed disappeared with all the money and all the books. Don't get me started. So that's why I did a second edition, which I rewrote and is way better, and that's what's called The Only Girl in the Room. Right. And I think I might have 1 or 2 copies of No Girls Allowed, and if you text me or email me your address, I will gift you one of those last copies. It actually could be signed to someone else. That's how crazy that whole book was. Wow. But I would, or it could have like the title page is wrong. She was such a train wreck. But I think I do have an extra one, and I really may only have 2 left. If you do, I will tell me how much it is, and we will take care of that. And not only that, personally autograph it too. Okay, I'll cross out the other person's name and I'll put yours. But I wouldn't let you pay for it because it's not even that good. The stories are great, but the book's not good. But the second book. Now the second book, second book, you gotta let me buy that one though. I will. Please. I'll let you buy a copy for everyone at work. There you go. Autograph the second book when that comes out. So. Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, CJ, you are such a blessing. CJ Silas, she has the CJ Silas Show. Again, it's Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, but 5 o'clock Pacific Time. Again, you can see it on hear it on ESPN Radio, 1280 AM and FM 101.7. That's The Ticket in San Luis Obispo, California. CJ, I appreciate you. You can also the podcast. It's so right when the show's over. Okay, right when it's over, it goes up. Okay, right when the show's over at 9 o'clock Eastern. Okay. The podcast goes up on Facebook, Instagram, and it's in 21 countries. I'm actually doing better in other countries than I am in the United States, believe it or not. But the podcast is on the CJSilasShow.com as well. Right. And yeah, your Twitter handle is at the CJ Silas Show, correct? That's Instagram, at the CJ Silas Show. Twitter is at CJ Silas. Right. And then Facebook is CJ Silas. Yeah. Okay. Hey, thank you so much, CJ. You're awesome and a blessing. Oh, yeah, we can do that. And thank you again so much for being on the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. Anytime, brother. Anytime. And thank you so much for checking out this edition of the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. For all the latest news, weather, and sports, there's only one place to go. That's WFXRTV.com. Also, download the WFXR News app. More good stuff. We are here to hook you up with the good stuff on WFXR. Again, thank you so much for watching the latest edition of the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. I'm Jermaine Ferrell. Hope all of your teams are winners. Have a wonderful and blessed day, everybody.